What if I told you that the reason you feel so exhausted, so trapped, and so constantly anxious isn't because something is wrong with your brain? It's because something is mathematically wrong with the world you are trying to fit into. You are trying to survive in a system that was explicitly designed to break you. For thousands of years, we've been sold a lie. We're told that the universe is built on perfect order, like the golden ratio, 1.618. We see it in nature, in art, in architecture. We are taught that if we just follow the rules, act perfectly, and balance our lives, we will find peace. But that is a house of cards. Did you know that Pythagoras, the father of modern math, was so terrified of numbers that didn't fit his perfect system that he literally had a man murdered just to keep the existence of chaos a secret? This brings me to my point, and this is the brutal truth no one wants to admit. Most of you watching this are living your lives like a rigged math equation. You act like a chameleon, constantly changing your colors, suppressing your true nature, just so you don't disrupt the harmony of the room. You swallow your anger, your weirdness, your chaos, just to be the good person or the perfect employee. And what is the reward for being so perfectly compliant? Complete and utter burnout. You are starving your soul to feed an illusion. The truth is, the universe isn't just made of perfect circles. It's made of irrational, chaotic, unpredictable forces. And until you learn to stop fighting your own internal chaos, you will never truly live. In today's profound podcast episode, we are going to tear down this illusion. We are diving deep into the terrifying history of forbidden numbers, the mathematical manipulation of human emotion, and why true freedom requires you to stop trying to be perfect and start being real.
Welcome to the debate. So I want you to imagine standing on the edge of a really rugged cliff on the island of Samos.
Okay, setting the scene.
Exactly. The year is around 570 BC, right? You're looking out over the water, just listening to the crashing of the ocean against the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
But you aren't just seeing chaotic water and sea foam. You're actually seeing, you're seeing a sea of geometric patterns, mathematically locking into place to form the waves.
Like a hidden architecture.
Yes, exactly. You are looking through the surface of the physical world and seeing the code beneath it.
And that is the exact vision of Pythagoras. I mean, he lived in a time when the common explanation for nature was strictly mythological. If lightning struck, the priests just said, Zeus makes the thunder.
Right, end of story.
Yeah. But Pythagoras actually asked how.
Precisely. He sensed a much deeper order. He proposed this profound premise that we are honestly still grappling with today. The idea that the tangible world of solid matter is actually, it's an illusion.
A projection, almost?
Right. Reality at its core is a source code made of mathematical frequencies and vibrations. And today we're looking at whether that worldview, this perfectly ordered, mathematically harmonic universe where everything from gravity to human destiny can be decoded, is the true nature of reality.
And it's a huge question.
It is. I take the position that the universe and our very lives are masterful designs of mathematical resonance. They're just waiting to be decoded for harmony and self-mastery.
And I take the position that attempting to force reality into perfect, rational formulas is, it's a seductive illusion. It's a beautiful theory, sure, but it ultimately shatters when it's forced to confront the infinite, unpredictable, and just chaotic complexity of the natural world.
So you're saying the math fails?
I'm saying glitches in this system exist, yeah. And they prove the universe is fundamentally irreducible.
Well, to grasp the sheer scale of what Pythagoras was proposing, we have to look at how he actually synthesized this knowledge. I mean, he didn't just invent a mathematical philosophy out of thin air on a pleasant Greek afternoon.
No, definitely not.
He realized that to truly hack reality, he had to learn the language of the original architects.
Right. He basically went on a decades-long infiltration mission into the ancient world's most secretive institutions.
Exactly. He traveled to Egypt and literally submitted himself to brutal initiation rites.
Oh, yeah?
We're talking fasting for 40 days, supposedly sleeping in subterranean tombs with the dead.
Wait, 40 days of fasting.
That's the legend, yeah. All just so the notoriously secretive Egyptian priesthood would trust him enough to whisper their truths to him.
Wow.
And the core truth they taught him was that geometry wasn't just, a tool for measuring land after the Nile flooded. It was the architecture of the divine. They showed him how the pyramids were essentially machines of resonance.
Built to harmonic proportions.
Right, proportions that mirrored the stars.
And this is fascinating, he took that Egyptian geometry and collided it with the astronomy of the Babylonian Magi.
Exactly, the Star Watchers.
Right. They were the ones who showed him the precise clockwork dance of the planets.
But the defining epiphany, the moment the universe truly revealed its symphony to him, happened when he bridged the cosmos with human perception. And the legend says it happened at a simple blacksmith shop.
Ah, the famous hammers?
Right. He heard hammers striking anvils, clang, clang. While everyone else just heard industrial noise, Pythagoras heard music. He realized that the pleasing sounds actually correlated to exact mathematical ratios of the hammer weights.
Wait, so he literally just listened to hammers of different weights and cracked the code of music?
Well, the legend focuses on hammers, but the actual mechanism he used to prove it mathematically was a monochord.
A single-stringed instrument?
Exactly. This is where we get to the how. If you pluck a string, it vibrates at a specific frequency and makes a sound. If you place a bridge exactly in the middle of that string, cutting its vibrating length perfectly in half, and plug it again, it produces the exact same note, just higher.
A 2-to-1 ratio.
Right. A 2-to-1 ratio produces a perfect octave.
And a 3-to-2 ratio produces a perfect fifth. 4-to-3 gives you a perfect fourth.
Exactly. And why do those specific ratios sound beautiful to the human ear? It's literally wave mechanics. When the string lengths are in those simple whole number ratios, the peaks and valleys of the sound waves they produce lock together perfectly.
They resonate.
They physically resonate. When the ratios are complex and mismatched, the waves clash, and we perceive it as an ugly, dissonant noise. Pythagoras proved that sound is vibration, and vibration is entirely governed by number.
Music is just math that we can hear.
Yes. Therefore, if matter vibrates, the physical and spiritual realms are perfectly bridged by mathematics. All is number. The chaos of the natural world is merely a mask for perfect hidden symmetry.
I mean, the discovery of the octave on a vibrating string is undeniably brilliant. It's absolutely one of the great leaps in human thought.
Right.
And this is a massive but, taking that specific acoustic phenomenon and leaping to the claim that literally everything in the universe, from morality to the movement of stars, can be expressed as neat whole number ratios?
You think it's a stretch?
I think that is a dogmatic fantasy. And we have to look at the immense human cost of maintaining that fantasy. Pythagoras didn't just open a casual school for geometry. He created a cult of intense psychological enforcement.
Okay, you're referring to the strict rules of his followers, but I think cult misses the point of the discipline required to study this material.
I call it a cult because of the mechanisms of control. Consider his new initiates, the aquasmonikoi, or the listeners. For 5 full years, these people were forced to take a vow of absolute silence.
It was a test of focus.
5 years without speaking a single word. They couldn't even look at Pythagoras. He delivered his lectures from hidden behind a heavy curtain.
Well, they had to focus on the voice, not the man.
They were stripped of their personal property, forced into communal living, and bound by bizarre, ritualistic rules. Never cross a bean field. Do not stir a fire with a knife. Always put your right shoe on first.
Those sound arbitrary to a modern ear, I'll give you that. But they were deeply symbolic metaphors for spiritual discipline.
Metaphors are not. They functioned as absolute mechanisms of behavioral control. You call it harmony? I call it a sensory deprivation environment designed to break down the individual.
That's a very cynical read.
The locals in Croton looked at this secretive compound with awe, sure, but also deep suspicion. This was an intellectually fragile system. When you declare that the universe is perfectly rational, entirely built on simple fractions and absolute rules, you are building a house of cards.
A house of cards.
Yes, because it bred secrecy and fear. It had to physically isolate itself from the messy, irreducible realities of the actual world, because the math itself was going to betray them.
You're looking at the strictness as fragility, but let's actually examine what they were guarding. They were protecting what they considered the Rosetta Stone of existence, the tetractys.
The triangle.
Right. But it wasn't just a mathematical symbol. It was the entire story of dimensional creation, encoded in a triangle of 10 dots.
Just to visualize it, it's 4 dots at the bottom, 3 above them, 2 above those, and a single dot at the top. It looks like a bowling pin setup.
It looks simple, yeah. But let me break down the mechanism of why it's a flawless map of reality. The single dot at the top is the monad. In geometry, one point has no dimensions. It represents the divine singularity, the pure source.
Okay.
The row of 2 dots beneath it represents a line, one dimension. This introduces duality, right? Light and dark, male and female. The row of 3 dots represents a triangle, which creates a 2-dimensional surface. And the bottom row of 4 dots represents a tetrahedron, a 3-dimensional solid.
Point, line, surface, solid.
Hence, 3-dimensional matter.
And when you add those rows up, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, you get 10.
10, the perfect number. Completion, the return to unity. By meditating on these geometric progressions, they weren't just doing math homework. They were decoding the matrix of reality.
They thought they had the blueprint of God.
They did. They guarded it dot by dot because it answered everything.
But the blueprint had a fatal flaw. Your matrix had a glitch, and it was a glitch that struck at the very core of this supposed perfection. That flawless dimensional map was completely upended by one of their own brilliant students, a man named Hippasus.
Ah, yes, Hippasus.
Hippasus didn't use chaotic real-world measurements to break the system. He used their own sacred geometry. He was studying a simple square with sides of exactly 1 unit. He drew a line from one corner to the opposite corner, the diagonal, and he tried to calculate its length.
Using the Pythagorean theorem. 1 squared plus 1 squared equals 2, therefore the diagonal is the square root of 2.
Exactly. But here is the horror that shattered the tetractys. The square root of 2 cannot be written as a neat whole number fraction. It is an irrational number.
Right.
If you try to calculate it, the decimal extends into infinity. 1.41421356 and on, forever, without ever falling into a repeating pattern. Do you see why this was absolute madness to them?
Because it implies something unmeasurable.
It implies an abyss. At the very heart of their perfectly orderly, rational universe, inside a basic 1x1 square, there existed an infinite, chaotic void.
A void is a strong word.
Hippasus stared into the math, and the math stared back with infinite complexity. This wasn't a minor rounding error. It was a fundamental, unassailable refutation of the idea that reality can be perfectly captured by neat ratios.
Okay, you are assuming the infinite, non-repeating nature of that number implies a breakdown of the system. I see it entirely differently. It doesn't prove chaos. It proves a deeper layer of the code.
A deeper layer?
Yes. Think about modern computing. If a software program has a deeply complex, infinite line of code that a novice user doesn't understand, it doesn't mean the computer isn't still running on fundamental binary logic.
But they weren't novice users, they were the architects. Couldn't this supposed abyss simply be a more sophisticated level of the architectural design? The existence of an irrational number doesn't negate the absolute truth of the musical octave or the perfect fifth. It just suggests the symphony has movements that are too complex for our immediate comprehension.
Calling it a deeper layer of code feels like a really convenient way to protect a theory that just failed its own stress test. Hippasus didn't find a misunderstanding. He found a mathematical limitation of their worldview.
But the worldview didn't stop at abstract geometry, which is why they were so committed to it. This structural design applies directly to the human narrative. Remember their first principle? All is number.
Right.
If the planets vibrate at specific frequencies, and our bodies are made of the same stardust and matter, it logically follows that human beings have a frequency too.
Oh boy. I know what you're thinking, and I know what anyone listening is thinking. This starts sounding like a cheap magazine horoscope. You convert letters to numbers, and suddenly you know my destiny.
It's the exact skepticism I expect. But look at the mechanism behind their logic. In their system, every letter of the alphabet corresponds to a number. A is 1, B is 2, and so forth. They didn't view this as a parlor trick.
They took it very seriously.
They believed that speaking a name physically vibrated the air at specific mathematical frequencies, and those acoustic signatures interacted with the physical world. By converting your name and your birth date, which is essentially your exact coordinate in space and time, into numbers, you aren't doing fortune-telling. You are doing rigorous data analysis on the self.
Data analysis based on an arbitrary alphabet.
To them, it wasn't arbitrary. It was the profound metadata of your character. It explains why certain people repeat the same narrative mistakes, or why two siblings raised in the exact same house have wildly different natural talents. It reveals what they called a life path number.
The numerology of the soul.
Exactly. It's the storytelling of the self, written in the cosmic code. If the universe is a symphony, your numerology is essentially the tuning of your specific instrument. Pythagoras taught that once you understand these numbers, you stop being a passive victim of fate. You become a co-creator of your own story.
But how does that actually work in practice?
Let's say your mathematical frequency aligns with the number 1, the pioneers, the leader. If you spend your life trying to play the note of a 2, the follower, the background supporter, your life will feel out of tune. You will feel that jarring, dissonant clash we talked about in the blacksmith shop. But if you align with your soul's frequency, you resonate, you amplify, you become the author of your own geometric destiny.
The storytelling of the self. Wow. I have to stop you there, because the moment you claim to possess the definitive metadata of a human soul, you cross from philosophy straight into totalitarianism.
Totalitarianism? That's a huge leap.
Is it? The dark side of attempting to master human destiny through rigid mathematical categorization is that it invariably demands the suppression of anything or anyone that doesn't fit the formula.
It's about alignment, not suppression.
You speak of this numerological destiny as an empowering tool for self-mastery, but let's look at how the Pythagoreans actually wielded this power to maintain their perfect resonance. Let's go back to Hippasus.
Okay.
When he shared his discovery of the irrational number, an undeniable mathematical truth, what was the reaction of this enlightened, harmonized society?
Well, they certainly didn't celebrate it.
They took him out on a boat to the middle of the sea, and because he had revealed the unutterable truth of the irrational number, they threw him overboard and drowned him in the ocean.
Wait, they literally drowned a member of their inner circle just for solving a math problem?
Yes! They murdered a man to save their theory. They tried to suppress a fundamental mathematical fact because it threatened their rigid narrative of a perfectly ordered universe.
That is, wow.
You cannot claim a system brings ultimate harmony when its immediate, practical application results in the violent suppression of truth and human life. The desperation to maintain this perfect resonance bred tyranny, pure and simple.
Okay, it is an extreme, horrific escalation, absolutely. The murder of Hippasus is a tragedy, and it's a grim omen of how fiercely human beings will cling to their understanding of order. But, and this is a big but, the human corruption of a system does not invalidate the underlying mechanics of the system itself.
If the system inevitably leads to drowning dissidents, maybe the system is flawed.
But the math remains pure, even if the men guarding it were deeply flawed.
The fact that a group of Pythagorean priests panicked in the face of the infinite doesn't change the fact that an octave is still a 2-to-1 ratio.
Right, the physics didn't change.
Exactly. It doesn't change wave mechanics. It doesn't change gravity. The actions of a frightened cult don't erase the harmony of the spheres.
But have you considered that it wasn't just an internal human flaw that brought them down, but the very nature of the unpredictable reality they were trying so hard to deny?
What do you mean?
The end of Pythagoras himself proves that reality is ultimately governed by unquantifiable brute force, not sacred geometry.
How so?
It all unraveled because of a rejected applicant. A wealthy, powerful nobleman named Silent wanted to join the inner circle. Pythagoras, supposedly reading Silent's soul or analyzing his numerological metadata like you mentioned, saw a tyrant and rejected him.
He analyzed his character and said no?
Right. He tried to apply his rigid categorizations to a complex human being, and it backfired spectacularly. Cylon didn't care about the music of the spheres. He was humiliated and enraged.
A dangerous combination.
Very. He used his wealth and influence to whip the citizens of Croton into a frenzy, spreading rumors that these secretive elitists were practicing dark magic and plotting to overthrow the government.
The classic response to knowledge that the masses just don't understand.
Or the natural consequence of isolating yourself behind a heavy curtain. A mob formed with torches and pitchforks. They marched on the Pythagorean meeting house, blocked the exits, and set the building on fire.
Just absolute destruction.
The flames consumed the scrolls, the instruments, and the wisdom of decades. Pythagoras, an old man at this point, was forced to flee into the night, running from the destruction of his life's work.
Right.
And the legend says he reached a field of beans. Because of his strict, uncompromising vow never to cross a bean field, perhaps believing they contained the souls of the dead, he stopped.
He actually stopped running.
He chose death over compromising his rigid rules, and the mob cut him down where he stood. The man who supposedly hacked reality was destroyed by the sheer, messy, unquantifiable brute force of an ignorant mob. Chaos won.
Did chaos truly win, though? I mean, I look at that fire in Croton not as the end, but as a crucible. The physical school was burned, the master was dead, and the followers were scattered. But you cannot kill an idea that is fundamentally woven into the physical mechanics of the universe.
You think it survived the fire?
I know it did. The survivors went underground. They formed a secret society, communicating through geometric symbols, passing the fragments of the hacker's code down through the generations. And look at where those fragments landed.
You're going to claim all of Western science is Pythagorean?
I'm going to track the unbroken lineage. One of the men who picked up those fragments was Plato. He literally bought the surviving Pythagorean books and wove their teachings into the very foundation of Western philosophy.
Well, Plato was certainly influenced.
But it goes far beyond philosophy. It goes to hard physics. During the Renaissance, Johannes Kepler explicitly set out to find the music of the spheres that Pythagoras predicted, and he found it.
Kepler found planetary motion, not a literal cosmic symphony.
He found the mechanism. In his work Harmonices Mundi, Kepler calculated the ratio of a planet's maximum to minimum angular velocity as it moves in its elliptical orbit. He discovered that those physical speeds translate directly to musical intervals.
Ah, I see where you're going.
The ratio for Earth is a half step. Jupiter and Mars form a minor third. He literally proved that planetary orbits follow precise harmonic ratios. Then look at Nikola Tesla, who explicitly stated that to find the secrets of the universe, we must think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Which is very Pythagorean.
That is pure, unadulterated Pythagoreanism.
Yes, but even Kepler's perfect geometric solids had to eventually give way to Newton's calculus, right? Which was invented specifically to deal with continuous, messy change.
And yet the code adapted. Today, the very computer algorithms running our modern world, the internet, artificial intelligence, global finance, they are built entirely on binary code, zeros and ones.
The ultimate numbers.
The exact same underlying logic that renders a digital universe on our screens is the logic Pythagoras sensed rendering the physical universe in that blacksmith shop. Reality is number. The code was preserved, hidden in plain sight, waiting for humanity's technology to catch up to its philosophy.
It's an incredible narrative, I'll give you that.
The same consciousness that calculates 2 plus 2 is the consciousness that spins the galaxies, that is a legacy of magnificent, enduring order.
It is an enduring legacy, certainly, but what has endured is mathematics as a powerful descriptive map, not as the territory itself.
You still separate the two.
I do, because the history of the Pythagoreans is a massive cautionary tale about confusing the map for the landscape. When we look at their journey, we see that while math allows us to describe nature with breathtaking precision, reality ultimately contains infinite, irreducible complexities.
You still view the irrational number as a failure rather than a feature.
Because it is a permanent reminder, the square root of 2, the discovery that literally cost Hippasus his life, proves that the universe cannot be forced into a perfect, predictable, whole number box without sacrificing the truth. The chaotic abyss exists. The irrational decimals go on forever. The mob with the torches exist. If we ignore the infinite and the unpredictable in favor of a comforting, neat whole number, we are blinding ourselves to the full, staggering reality of the cosmos.
You think it limits us?
I think reality is too vast to be captured by a single equation, no matter how beautiful it sounds on a plucked string.
And yet, the sheer persistence of mathematical order, stretching from ancient vibrating strings in Greece to the orbital mechanics of Jupiter, and straight down to the digital algorithms organizing our lives today, it suggests that reality truly is a masterpiece of design.
A design with flaws.
A design with profound depth. The synchronicities we experience, the geometric beauty of a flower's petals unfolding in the Fibonacci sequence. These aren't random accidents of a chaotic void. They are invitations.
Invitations to what?
They invite us to wake up from the simulation of chaos, to read the mathematical metadata of our own lives, and to tune our personal instruments to the universe's inherent harmony. We are invited to step out of the noise and resonate with the code.
Well, perhaps the true nature of reality doesn't belong entirely to either extreme. It might not be a flawless crystal of absolute order, nor a terrifying void of pure chaos.
A synthesis of both.
Right. It likely exists in the endless, profound dance between the perfect harmony of whole numbers and the infinite, untamable mystery of the irrational abyss.
It leaves us exactly where we started, looking out over that cliff in Samos. We are left to wonder if the crashing waves are chaotic water or perfect geometry, or somehow beautifully both.
We encourage you to look closer at the patterns in your own life and decide for yourself what is echoing in the silence.